So let's start with the character lineup. I think that 32 characters is honestly amazing for Tamsoft's first attempt at a 3D Bleach fighting game, and each of them really do feel mostly distinct from one another. A few characters feel like they're not playing exactly the same game in certain matchups, and not in like a great way. Thanks to the first patch, however, almost no characters seem to dominate matchups in a broken way. However, and an even smaller percentage of characters than those that were broken before the patch feel like they still need more time in the oven. Admittedly, the issue of balance still feels more like a function of some characters feeling significantly underbaked than I'd like, however, and I hope to see that change in future patches. Camera. It works mostly straight out of the box with no issues. Unfortunately, there are situations that make it go bonkers, and they do arise in more than 1 out of every 10 games, in my experience. Seeing as this is an issue that plagues all 3D fighting games, and even AAA titles like Tekken that can't really get this right, I wouldn't dock points very many for this, or at the very least the points that I would dock wouldn't be weighted the same as other feedback categories. Battle system. I would personally like to see a lot of tweaks made to the balancing of the systems that we already have, but I cannot lie that the DNA of what exists is good. It's great. I'm happy with it. Any changes I would like to see tried experimentally, or that I would suggest, would mainly be changing around numbers and values of certain things, but not what those things are themselves. And I mess with the vision. I see the vision and I'm with it. And I'm really glad that Tamsoft was given a chance to kind of revive the genre of arena fighters and do something different with it. Battle effects. I'm not sure what they mean by this category, but I assume they meant visuals and special effects during battles. I'm definitely content with those, even if I would like for the original graphical engine to have been rendered a bit more stylized and vibrant, and less, for lack of a better term, realistic. I happen to be a firm believer of style over graphic fidelity, but even then I've been thoroughly impressed with the level of polish and authenticity put into all the visual aspects of the game outside of the character models themselves. Tutorial. I still haven't played this. Yeah, I'm probably gonna get around to that soon. As for the UI and HUD, no complaints. Pretty good job there. Graphic quality. I already made comments about how I hope character models would be a little bit more stylized, less realistic, maybe heavier on the lines, more contrasting color values, a bit more pop and all that into the Spider-Verse jazz. So I'm not gonna go too hard here. What we've received as a final product is extremely clean and mostly lacking any visual glitches or distracting noise. And I'm still I am just replete with happiness with how exciting it is to see one of my favorite IPs represented with such clarity and attention to detail. And it's in 3D. I'm pretty sure there are other 3D Bleach games, not counting Soul Resurrection. I mean PvP. I've only played bootlegged Japanese demos of Heat the Soul and whatnot. So that's not me. I've never played those things. They don't exist in my world. But this is great. Online connection quality. Yeah, put the roll back in the bag. Sound, smash. Next question. Would you recommend it? Here we run into a bit of a schism. So no and yes. I would recommend it to a Bleach fan who also happens to be a fighting game player. As it is a $60 asking price for a product that does more to promote the Bleach IP than it does to offer the fighting game community a new title with fresh ideas, it's a bit much. And this is not a dig against how well it represents Bleach as an IP. I think it does so much to promote and even further and progress Bleach as an IP. If I were to get someone into Bleach for the first time in 2025, they're watching TYBW and then they're like, I gotta go back. So I gotta go back, I gotta see context. If I were to get someone into Bleach into 2025 and they're discovering it, they're falling in love with it, and I go, hey, this game actually just came out and I really enjoy it. If money doesn't really matter to you, let's come give it a try and we can play together, then yeah, for sure. But then again, only if they also played fighting games. I'm not trying to sell this game to a person who isn't passionate about fighting games just for fighting games' sake. It's like the difference between, Tekken players and fighting game players, as they say. Anyway, this game does a great job at kind of paying a lot of homage and showing a lot of love and really showcasing the awesome world and characters and story that Bleach has had, and even going up beyond there. But I don't think it's doing more or as much for being a cool new fighting game with new systems, which it does have, but that also is attractive enough as a product right now to be worth $60 as opposed to, say, Grand Blue, which is coming out constantly with updates and is on, admittedly has had 4 more years of time in the oven, but I think there's just so much more that's polished, finished, and done to interact with and have fun with right now. I think the biggest pain point for whether or not recommend it would be that the netcode just isn't what fighting game players, or at least I consider standard and the bare minimum for what developers should provide. And that's because that fighting games, the genre, ultimately live and die by their player base, their numbers. A fighting game is still alive as long as there are 2 players playing it. Not 1, I think, but 2. As long as those 2 players are still happy and having a good time and, I guess, alive, so they have someone else to play with, both of them, then that game is alive and doing well. When you have a game, regardless of how well the systems are, regardless of how enrapturing those systems can be, how deep and organic and enjoyable they are, if people can't actually connect through the game and play the game with each other, then you might as well have nothing. So the netcode needs to be better to compete with other titles at the $60 ticket price before we can even get to discussing whether the gameplay is attractive. And that goes both ways for whether this game is supposed to be marketed for a casual player base. Maybe internally they're hoping to bring in more Bleach fans than fighting game fans. Obviously, it's a Venn diagram. It's not one or the other. But I don't know what Bandai Namco was thinking with this, or rather, what they are hoping in terms of their return on investment. I imagine that they probably brought in more Bleach fans than they did fighting games, or if they were to put a survey that goes meticulously into why did you buy this game, or how do you identify in terms of a consumer who has purchased this game, I imagine it'd be at least 50-50, but probably more likely in the favor of I'm a Bleach fan and this is a Bleach game. So we can start talking about whether this is satisfying for casual audiences, satisfying or worth it for hardcore fighting game audiences. I think it's definitely satisfying for hardcore Bleach fans, but for the other half of that Venn diagram, I don't think it's not really holding its own weight for $60. And I'm really, really, really hoping that will change in the future. But I need to see the developers continue to support the game beyond the launch period. And for me, that means DLC 2, Season 2, Season 3, year number 2, at the very least. Now, why did I decide to play? So, in my opinion, this game is the first of its kind. Like I mentioned earlier, this is the first 3D Bleach game that I've played, period. Bleach is getting the ultimate Ninja Storm treatment, where I can replay the whole story, play a majority of the story's characters, relive experiencing one of my favorite animes for the first time, while also getting to play as my favorite characters against other people in a competitively balanced setting is a lot of dreams come true for me. And I can't really put it any simpler and more profound than that. This is like, I'm really happy about this. As cobbled together as it can feel at times, as sad the netcode makes me, like, I'm happy that this exists and that Bandai Namco was willing to just give this idea a shot. No matter how poorly executed it was, it made it out the door. Didn't get canceled. It made it out the door. And Tamsoft, kudos to you. Hats off to you. Thank you. Now on to the open response feedback questions. So they ask us for feedback on the game specifically with quote unquote any suggestions or requests you may have in as much detail as possible. So here I go. I've already talked to number 1, Robot Netcode. So let's go into the rest of what I have here. And these are also reflected in the short that I made and will be linked in the description below. So feel free to click on that and read through at your own pace in case I go too fast or some other reason. Number 2, please implement crossplay. Very simple. Fighting game players want to play with other fighting game players. Makes no sense to divide a player base amongst machines. The more people we can play with, the longer a game lives, and most likely the more fun we all get to have. Same thing goes for region locked matchmaking. Exact same argument. Don't restrict us to machines and hardware. And I imagine that the reason why these decisions were made, mainly for regional matchmaking, probably comes down to the fact that they have delay-based netcode, and delay-based netcode just really can't hold up against thousands of miles of distance. It just doesn't really work, which is another one of the reasons why rollback is superior. So yeah, change that. Number 4, keep up. Keep it up. You're doing a great job just making this happen, making it work, making it not a completely broken mess that everyone refund on day 1. So I want to see year 1 finalized, realized. Year 2, I want to be there. I want to see that happen. So I want an ongoing and active commitment to not only fixing bugs as they come up and as you find them, responding to bugs, but balancing characters, soliciting player feedback, and then, of course, using player feedback to inform your own decisions for balancing, because I believe that, it's important for developers to have their own vision for a game, especially competitive games. And if you're just willing to listen to the whims of the player base and you just do whatever they say, well, the player's going to want one thing one day, then you do it and they're like, oh, you guys suck, we hate this game. And it's like, well, what do you mean? We did what you asked for. Yeah, I don't fully believe that the players don't know what they want. But if you don't stand for something, you will stand for anything. And that does not make for a good game, or at least not a game that I want to play in the fighting game genre. I'll leave it at that. I'm not going to say for anything, but as a fighting game, no. I need you to stand for something. I need you to have a solid vision, because that solid vision is going to translate to conviction. That's going to translate to a very, very solid sense of identity within the game, so that people who play the game know why they play the game, why they enjoy it, and they know how to market it and how to sell it to other people who they want to bring into the game, and they know why they have a sense of community, and they can forge stronger bonds because of it. So please do that. I would say do better, but you've done good enough. And I don't want that to come across despairingly, because I am not about that kind of negativity. So please keep it up. As well, I want to continue seeing new characters in DLC. I'm willing to pay for it. I'm willing to pay for bonus contents like new maps, special story episodes. Like if y'all want to put in filler, that'd be great. I don't even need new characters. Maybe I want at least one new character for a filler arc. Like let me play as Jin Karya, and let me play as Muramasa from those two, the Bount arc and the Zanpakuto Rebellion arc. That'd be really cool. But special story episodes, alternate character costumes. I'm going to make a video about that, because this is such a huge deal for me, and this feels like such a missed opportunity that this hasn't been mentioned or marketed yet for their future monetization plan, or there's future plans for DLC in this game. Just look at League of Legends. You have a character does a thing, you have character skins, it just makes the character look different, and at the end of the day, the character's going to do the same thing. They're going to have different SFX, different voice lines sometimes, different colors, if you want to think about it that way. It's just different colors, different coat of paint for the characters. And Bleach is like the Mac Daddy of drip when it comes to Shonen Jump. Shonen Jump specifically. I know One Piece is really long and has lots of outfit changes, but Taito Kubo is amazing and has so many color spreads and volume covers, yada, yada, yada. He's up there with Araki in my mind, and I want to see characters in real clothes, plain clothes, stripped out for skiing, snowboarding, all that kind of stuff. And it already exists. And Tamsoft and Bandai have already leveraged existing source materials and pieces of inspiration to make a really good game that's really faithful to source material. So adding in alternate costumes and skins that are just translating existing materials would just be more of that. So it makes too much sense to not happen. And I'm more than willing to pay a reasonable price for it. So do it. I dare you, do it. You won't. Do it. I wrote down, look to Dragon Ball FighterZ and just their general legacy for a positive example of developer commitment to a title over multiple years. And look to Grand Blue Fantasy Versus Rising for a more idealized example of engagement with the community and a steady stream of output for new DLC and player cosmetics. DLC in this case meaning characters and character cosmetics. Please release at least 3 DLC seasons. 4 characters in a year is pretty nice, I'd say. Ideally, you want to keep up at that pace, but I know that it gets harder the longer that a game goes on, especially as game sales slow down. But if you could get 12 new characters over the course of the first 3 years, I'd say that was a pretty successful title overall. Tamsoft is going to need the sales to justify continuing to work and develop at that pace, but this is what I'm hoping for, and this is so I'm hoping, and so I'm going to ask for it. Because if no one asks for it, no one asks for anything. If no one says anything, we don't get anything, right? We just get whatever they think we want, or whatever they are hoping we're willing to settle for, and that's probably the worst case scenario. So I'm hoping, please give us 12 new characters or at least 3 years worth of DLC and season passes. In those DLC packs, season passes, whatnot, I know we're getting new characters. Please don't limit what you're willing to sell us and add to this game to just playable characters. This is a fighting game, and so yeah, it's going to live and die by the gameplay. But like, there's again so much more potential. We could get new stages, new music, and new story episodes. New music is kind of a necessity for new characters, because the precedent that's been set for the base roster is that every character has their own theme, at least in Awakening and whatnot. So I feel really cheapened if the DLC comes out and that's not the case, and it looks like we have another DNF duel situation on our hands. Not literally, but you know, the way that it leaves everyone, the taste in everyone's mouths. Moving on. I have a lot of thoughts on offense, and I'm going to make a separate video, actually series of videos about this that I've actually already started, but I'll try to summarize what I've written here, which you can see takes up the whole of my phone screen. So I want more room for player expression and creativity. And I don't think what we have is bad. I mean, no offense by this. This is a wish list, okay? I wish there were more opportunities to represent more options when you are on offense. When I say offense, I mean block strings and on hit, so in combos. Otherwise, we're pretty good. I like spacing. I like the spacing game a lot. I like neutral a lot. I like that you have a skip neutral button, but it costs a very valuable resource a lot. But when it comes to combos, you either light, heavy, cool, we get 2 options, that's more than Naruto, but you light, heavy, and you can alternate them essentially up to 1 or 2 times in a given string. Once that string is over, you can mix it up with sidestep or grab. And that's, I mean, obviously you have spiritual pressure moves as well and signature moves, but attacking buttons, I would kind of divide them into 2 categories, light, heavy. In this case, signature moves will be in the heavy category if they, you know, are attacking moves. And then you have spiritual pressure moves, which pretty much I'm going to call heavy as well. So 2 options and then your throw. So 3 options on offense. And my concern here is the way in which they cancel or gatling into each other. You can light into heavy, you can heavy into light, and you can not true combo, but cancel all of these things, fake it opponent ounce with your plus frames with a breaker. That's cool. Technically, there's also Hakugeki. Why is it that I can't do a basic combo, maybe like light, light, heavy, and then Hakugeki, and then spiritual pressure move? Why is it that only some spiritual pressure moves, for instance, Gin's spiritual pressure 2, the swipe and then stab, can only be comboed essentially after light or heavy strings, not after Hakugeki, not after, I'm not remembering exactly right now, so I don't want to say anything incorrect. But if Tamsoft wants it so that the Hakugeki, the big red swipe thing, means like, okay, I'm giving up my turn for this really big, heavy, slow hit, and if I can frame trap you into pressing a button in between my combo and me hitting you with this move, then that's great for me because I get a lot of damage, and then maybe I can follow up if I want to, if I have the resources to. Then that's cool. That's fine. If that's their vision for the game, I would still argue with that, but I'm willing to accept it because, again, what we already have so far, I've enjoyed. But why not let players mix each other up even more? Why not let us go crazy? Why not season 3 of Dragon Ball with it, you know? Where, oh no, it's still my turn, but I'm going to pay for it. You know, like I'm paying for my reverse gauge. I'm paying with my reverse burst. I know it's not the name of it, but my burst. I'm paying for my spiritual pressure gauge. You know, if I'm playing Ukiura, which I do, I'm doing my signature. Well, not my signature. I'm doing my special flash into signature, right? Then I'm confirming the combo with my heavy combo. And then I'm going to hit you with the follow-up reset with SP2, right? That's really cool. But that's essentially a idealized combo. It's an optimal combo, that doesn't have any variations. There are almost like no variations to what is optimal in that situation. And so it kind of comes down to, oh, can you press the buttons? Can you do the combo? Have you labbed it? Have you practiced it? Or can you not? And that's fine. But if defense also knows that this is what's going to happen here, let's say this is on a block string, well, the defense essentially has all of the onus of the interaction on them. And that's fine. I'm not against a defensively oriented game or a game where the defenders have more initiative, are stronger, right? Have more options. That's fine. But I think if we opened up the combo structure a bit so that players can kind of like trap themselves, just use more of the resources and just do more on offense and either dig a deeper hole or just totally just like explode their opponent's brains, I think that would be more fun overall, even if it's more degenerate, right? It wouldn't mean that combos get scaled that much more, that much longer, because if I'm willing to cancel my heavy string into a spiritual pressure move, I guess not in this case, into a Hakugeki and then a spiritual pressure move, I'm still going to be open at the end of it. And that's going to be the same case if I use the Hakugeki with no spiritual pressure afterwards because it's not possible, which is what we currently have, versus if I do. At least in this case, I've also wasted 50 meter, right? And if opponent doesn't have the block, the guard gauge to defend against that, oh well, that was something that I did intentionally, probably, because I knew they wouldn't be able to block through all of it. But I still spent that 50 extra meter to do that. It didn't cost me anything to do Hakugeki. And when we do follow-ups for combos, right, you do combo into knockup Hakugeki or just general knockback from the heavy combo ender, you do the ho-ho follow-up, and then that does an auto combo for you. Stop that. I think that's really cool, and it looks really pretty, and it's glad that every character has like a unique follow-up. But like, let the player do that. Let the player press the teleport button, no, nothing personal, kid, behind you, and then do a combo. Make it optional so that maybe we can hold the follow-up, the ho-ho, and then if we hold it down, it'll do the auto combo finisher for us. But like, no, like let players teleport and then give them the potential to fail. Like maybe they teleport and they don't press the button at the right time, so they don't actually hit the combo. Or maybe they teleport too quickly and so they miss their light attack. Or, they teleport and then they use a combo, but then they drop the combo. So now that they drop the combo, they're still in recovery. The opponent is fine. And now we have the next interaction, right? So defense has recovered. Defense is at neutral. I'm still swinging because I pressed my ho-ho follow-up. I used my resource, but I messed up. So now we're not like across the screen from each other. You press Hakugeki, you're just gone. It's back to like far neutral. No, we're still at arm's length. The opponent can, if I'm still swinging, maybe I have a multi-hit move. The opponent, if they have a counter, they can counter. They can breaker. They can, I don't know, if they have some charge or gauge, they can charge in my face. They can white reverse, right? They can do so many things now because we're not completely reset to neutral, right? Because I messed up. I used resources and I wasn't able to capitalize on my vision, and that allowed the defender to get an advantage and the system allowed for it. So I'm really, really big on that. Like, open it up. Let us make more mistakes. Let us do more. Let us be more messy with the combat system. And if things are too strong, you can just tone down the numbers. Like maybe if ho-ho follow-ups into free combo structure is too strong, just make the scaling higher, right? Don't make it so high that it's never worth it to use the reverse gauge to do the ho-ho follow-up. But like, we can still make that choice. Maybe we're making the choice because we want to build spiritual pressure gauge because we need it for something, right? Maybe we're making the choice because the opponent's just that close to a soul break, right? But we can do that. We're not limited to, oh, I'm not going to ho-ho here, not because I need the reverse gauge or anything like that. But if I do the follow-up, it's not going to kill anyway, and then we're set to neutral. So let me just sit right here and wait out the opponent's recovery frames anyway. Like, yeah, we still end up in that situation where you reset to neutral, but I think that the interesting is that the decisions that follow from that situation where it's not neutral from Hakugeki, where you're literally on the other side of the map, but it's neutral where, you can grab each other on reaction instantly, that's much more tense, that's much more exciting, much more involved, much more engaging, and there are more viable options in that situation than otherwise, because you can hit someone with, for most characters, a light probably, for almost all characters a heavy, and you still have to remain on your toes. It's not time to just sit back and wait for someone else to come to you. And I wish the game had more than that, even though I really like the emphasis on spacing, right? Just because you're set to neutral and you're in heavy range, quick or flash attack range, doesn't mean the first person that presses the button or whoever's plus in that situation wins. No, you can sidestep, you can backdash, right? The movement system is robust enough for that. So I think there's still lots of room for defense in that situation. And I really wish that, I hope that the game can evolve towards that, and that Tamsoft and Bandai, whoever else is working on the game, are willing to take those risks and then, attenuate as necessary. Number 7, please lower the strength of grabs, breakers. We have a triangle of rock, paper, scissors in this game, and I know what it's supposed to be, but in reality, especially because of delay-based netcode, where everything is delayed usually, unless you're in a perfect connection, breakers just kind of win. You use a move, it looks like you hit them. Nope, nothing personal. Behind you, kid. They're hitting you with the breaker, the animation. And it almost works the way that rollback works visually. It's kind of funny. You think that something went through, you see your hit go through, but nope. Pink takes precedent. I play Ulquiorra and Gin, and there have been times where I'll do a quick attack combo so I can fake someone out and use plus frames to reset to neutral, get a counter hit, strike back, whatever. And after my combo finishes, the opponent would do their backflip and then reset and instantly press breaker. And even though as Ulquiorra, I press Cero, my signature move, right? Their breaker wins because, first of all, it's very fast startup, right? And second of all, we're so close that even though Cero is pretty fast startup itself, I don't know if there's just startup invulnerability, or if the hitbox is really extended really far ahead of the character model, but it feels like breakers literally vacuum you towards them. They have some kind of proximity check or something where it's it doesn't matter what you're doing if they should get hit out of it otherwise, if you have overlapping hitboxes. But if I get close to you and I touch you with this, my throw is going to go through. I'm going to win. And yeah, that's just really frustrating because that should not be the case. And it's especially frustrating when you can't really time it otherwise, such that, someone can press breaker. I've had this happen so many times, including as Gin. Gin is so frustrating for me because I had this one match when I was playing versus Toshio, Hitsugawa player, and he would legit just press breaker from all the way across the screen. And I'd be like, okay, cool. I'm just going to sit here and Hakugeki you whenever you walk up. And I just smack him back. And he just kept doing it. I don't know why. He just kept doing it. And at some point, I was like, all right, cool. I want to get more out of this interaction. I want to get combos. I want more damage. I don't want to just keep using Hakugeki. So I would go for my flash attack, my heavy, so I could get a combo out of it. And after I started doing that, he started delaying his breaker. And for some reason, some of the time, he'd stop just short. And then he'd press it again. And during the startup, I would hit him with the flash attack, but he'd just go through it and grab me, even though he was not in range of actually hitting me. So I don't know if that's just a Gin thing, if maybe he has a hurt box on his sword so that he can literally get grabbed if his opponent's touching it. But I had that happen with Gin and Ulquiorra, mainly with Ulquiorra's special fast attack, where you're lunging forward, and it's I will be mid animation, I'm doing my swipe, and the opponent, I'm timing it on wake up. I'm doing that, but the opponent mashes breaker on wake up, and their attack goes through, even though the startup is after my attack should have already connected. Again, probably a connection netcode thing, but it's not fun. That's anti-fun, and it doesn't help the longevity of the game if the meta continues to evolve to just press throw. Lastly, I really think it's cool how reverse gauge kind of ramps up over the course of the match, and it gets to be this kind of nail-biting resource that you can use more and more towards later stages of the game once sublimation and spirit drive have been reached. But I think at all stages of the game, it could be buffed by at least 25%, and if not at least at the beginning of the game, it can be buffed by as much as 50%. I think that you should get reverse gauge actively for doing things actively. That might not make sense, and I don't want to rant too much longer, but I think that if you're a neutral and you do offensive actions, like for instance, I'm a neutral and I'm dashing towards my opponent, I should get a 1% boost to my reverse gauge. I should get +1 reverse gauge, +1% for doing that, because I am engaging with my opponent. I am engaging with the system, right? I am taking a risk by moving forward, even if I'm on the other side of the map, right? Sure, like no one can probably hit each other. Most characters can't hit each other at that range, but you know, there are other mechanics and elements of the system that make it so that is a risk, right? I am doing something. Maybe if I dash forward and my opponent has reverse gauge, they can flash up and behind me at the exact moment that my dash starts. So if you're smart, you know, you're gonna dash and block, but why would you dash and block from that range, right? So your opponent anticipating your attacks, your movements, your actions, maybe understanding your playstyle, understanding your habits, has options against you. So I think whenever you're doing something that's can be implied or is directly showing that you're engaging with your opponent, you're engaging with the fight, you're moving, you're running towards the fight as opposed to running away, there should be gains made towards your resources for doing that. I'm not saying give people spiritual pressure gauge for you know, moving. I'm not saying giving people spiritual pressure gauge for whiffing buttons in neutral, right? This is that kind of game, but I don't think that we should like reward offense that heavily. I don't want this game to become hyper offensive. I like it the way that it is. I just want more of what it is. I think that if you did that, that would allow for more interactions per game state and per match. So if I am hitting you with whatever, you know, on block, sure, we have other things that are loading, gaining, like spiritual pressure gauge. But if I am, you know, we're just schmooving, we're really feeling each other out. We're Korean wave dashing, and it looks like we're not actually fighting each other. We really are. We're feeling each other out, and we're learning each other's habits. That is playing the game, and that's playing the game from what I've experienced recently, especially at a very high level. You know, who's going to swing first? Who's more patient? Who knows their timings? Who knows their the mechanics better, right? For the sliding reverse gauge, ho-ho into backdash into throw, right? These are very viable options, but most of the time you can't make those decisions to express those options or represent them because the system's resources don't regenerate. They don't allow you to do that as much as it could. So we only get like really, really big moments occasionally, but it's more rewarding to sit back and wait for the opportunity to make those big moments happen, as opposing to staying in your opponent's face and doing things that would reward you for making those big moments happen, right? You have to wait for them as opposed to working towards them. And I don't think that's best, or I don't think that'll make for the most engaging game possible. And I know you see that there are other responses here at the bottom of the page. You've had plenty of time to read that, but that's all that I have to say today. More Rebirth of Souls gameplay, commentary, and discussion content coming soon. So subscribe if that's interesting to you and if you enjoyed this video. As well, let me know in the comments, what do you think? What did you put for the feedback survey? And what do you think about the points that I made about the gameplay and the monetization plan going forward especially?